Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody from around the world. Such exotic places as Nottingham, I see, Florida, California, and Prague, where we are. It's been a beautiful day here in Prague. Cold, very cold, but blue skies. And I know of a number of people who were cross-country skiing, taking advantage of the fact that we had quite a bit of snow on the ground, but very slippery here, but really lovely. We still have a lockdown here, but things are, we hope, slowly improving. Pretty much the same situation as everywhere else. At chajim, we have been having our services online, and we have a very big following for our weekly services for Kabbalat, Shabbat, and Havdalah. And it's great that we have quite a lot of people from Prague also here joining us today. This is a really interesting and fascinating session, I know. We're really going to be looking at the legacy of the Czech scrolls, and very importantly, renewal of Jewish life in the Czech Republic. Because while you're going to be hearing a lot about the history, which led to the creation, the establishment of the Memorial Scrolls Trust, you are also very importantly going to hear about life in the Czech Republic, Jewish life in the Czech Republic, and particularly about our new community, chajim, here in Prague. So my job is just to moderate this, and I don't want to say very much because I want to leave the time for our speakers. But what we will do is have each of the speakers introduce themselves, and then we will start the presentations. You're invited to send questions on the chat feature in Facebook, which I will collect, and then I will put the questions together and try my best to represent your questions to the speakers. Each of the speakers will speak for 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have plenty of time, I hope, for questions. So let me introduce behind the scenes Daniel Roots, who is, I see he's gone black, but he's our executive director, and he is the administrator and the whiz on the computer. So if everything goes right, we can thank him. If anything goes wrong, it's all his fault. That's a joke. But let me introduce our esteemed speakers. First of all, Jeffrey Ohrenstein, who is the chairman of the Memorial Scrolls Trust, who we're very honored to have here, who's going to talk to us about the Memorial Scrolls Trust, of course. And we have Sheila Pallay, who is from Boston, and Julius Muller from Prague, just one block away from me here in Prague. And they are going to talk about their magnificent book, which they've produced, Light Beyond the Shadows. And then we have our new Rabbi, David Maxa, new rabbi to chajim, who was ordained just a few months ago at the Abraham Geiger College, from the Abraham Geiger College. And he will bring us up to date in terms of talking about how we are benefiting from the Memorial Scrolls Trust and what we're doing to bring life, Jewish life, to Prague and across the Czech Republic. So let's go around the table, as it were. And first, Jeffrey, please introduce yourself, because nobody can introduce yourself better than you.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Jonathan. My name is Jeffrey Ohrenstein. I am chairman of the Memorial Scrolls Trust, which, as you know, the scrolls are held at the Westminster Synagogue, I was a former chairman of the synagogue for nearly 7 years. My background is that I've lived in countries like a few years in New Zealand, England, and South Africa. My wife is from Argentina. My children are married and include a son-in-law from Sweden and a daughter-in-law from South Africa. So we're quite multinational, like our scrolls. And it's a pleasure to be with you this evening, or this afternoon, or the morning, wherever you are.
Welcome, Jeffrey, and thank you very much for all of your support, which you're going to hear a lot about in a few minutes, everybody. Sheila?
Hi, I'm Sheila Pallay. I'm a passionate lifetime photographer. I live with my husband, Herb, in the US, in a town that's south of Boston, Massachusetts. And 5 years ago, my synagogue, Temple Sinai, decided to restore our precious Czech Torah. It was wonderful, and it was a life-changing project for me. My role, along with several other photographers, was to photograph a year-long celebration while the Torah was being restored. And I had many opportunities to be alone in the sanctuary with the Torah. I felt a palpable connection to it and to the generations before me. I then became a volunteer for the trust, and then I did a photographic study of Rabbi Kevin Hale as he restored a Czech Torah for the Dartmouth University in New Hampshire. And Rabbi Hale told the congregation about my photographs, and they were then exhibited at Dartmouth. My husband and I were invited to the completion ceremony, as was Jeffrey Ohrenstein. We went to this very moving event, and I had a sudden realization that I wanted to go to the Czech Republic and photograph the towns the Torah were from. I approached Jeffrey with my proposal, and on the spot, he said yes. The rest is history. I connected with Julius through a friend who was also a volunteer with the trust. I actually had no idea what to expect, but I had a premonition that it would be a life-changing opportunity and an adventure of a lifetime.
Sheila, thank you very much. And it was great to get to know you when you were here and to have you at my place for dinner. And I must say that I think that Sheila's middle name should be Passion, because she really is extraordinarily passionate, and one feels it all the time. And it's really great to have such interest in Czech Jewry. So Julius, please introduce yourself, Julius Muller.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan, for giving me a few words. I'm a former molecular biologist. I was working in Academy of Sciences for 15 years, had my small lab and molecular DNA analysis and other things. And I gradually became involved in my own family history. I went to the archives, learned a lot, and gradually I left the science in that term. And I became, 16 years ago, full-time Jewish genealogist. So since then, I changed microscopes and the DNA technology devices for, stories, archival research, dusty boxes, mold, and many other things, which led me to many nice experiences in this field of mishpechology, as someone would call it. So all the things led to meeting Sheila and her friend, and we went on a journey which was really unforgettable.
Thank you very much, Julius. And David Maxa.
Hello, everyone. What a privilege and honor to be with you this evening. I am David Maxa. Welcome to my home. I am really honored to be with you. I am rabbi of Etz Chaim in Prague and also the Federation of Jewish Communities in the Czech Republic. And I care for at least 2 more communities here. It's just amazing thing to say that it was basically last autumn when I graduated, and I would never imagine beginning my rabbinic position here in the Czech Republic under such circumstances. But I am pleased that even that made it possible for us to be connected with the whole world. So great to be with you.
You know, as I look at everybody joining today, it reminds me of how incredibly international we are as Jews. And it gives me the opportunity to say that here in the Czech Republic, we would not have been able to achieve anything if it wasn't for the great support and the love that we receive from people all around the world, which really is almost overwhelming. And it makes us feel fabulous, and it helps to propel us as we move and grow our community. And this is the opportunity for me to say a particularly big thank you to the European Union for Judaism. I'm the representative here in the Czech Republic, but I would like to thank the whole of the management of the European Union for its extraordinary support for us over many, many years. Thank you so much. And also, very importantly, to the World Union for Progressive Judaism, that has given us extraordinary support also over more than 15, more than 20 years, maybe more than that. And we really feel indebted to these two great organizations, and we are going to do our very best to be an exemplar of a new community in a part of the world where organizations like the European Union and the World Union exist to help develop Judaism. So thank you very much. So without any further ado, let me hand over to the first presenter, Jeffrey Ohrenstein. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Chaim members, for organizing this very special webinar. And thank you all. I don't know where you all are, but somewhere around the world, I've heard a few countries mentioned, and I hope that you find these talks are interesting. The Memorial Scrolls Trust, or MST, was created by the Westminster Synagogue to be responsible for 1,564 Torah and other scrolls that survived the Shoah and further neglect under the communists in Prague before being brought to the UK in 1964. And this is the story behind it. Historians tell us of Jews living in Prague since the 10th century. The Prague Altneuschule is the oldest active synagogue in the world. By 1700, Prague had the second largest Jewish population in Europe, with some 15,000 Jews. And putting this into perspective, at that time, there were some 1,000 Jews in London and possibly 100 in New York. The Jewish communities of Bohemia, Moravia were alternatively welcomed and expelled over the centuries, as in many other countries. But by the middle of the 19th century, they no longer suffered from residential, demographic, or occupational restrictions. With a population never greater than 125,000, it played above its weight, and it played an important part in Jewish history, with many famous yeshivot, and was also an early center of the Haskalah, the Enlightenment. In 1860, there were over 350 communities, albeit with an average number of less than 50 Jews in each. However, from then on, many Jews emigrated or moved to the larger cities. And by 1939, there were less than 200 provincial communities remaining. The Germans marched into Bohemia Moravia in March 1939 and immediately started to take over Jewish businesses and property, forcing congregations to close and using the Jewish community administration to endorse their dehumanizing demands and decrees. Over 82,000 Jews were deported to the death camps from Bohemia Moravia, of which 71,000 perished. An additional 7,000 were murdered before deportation. These names are recorded on the walls of the Pincus Synagogue in Prague. However, despite the murders, looting and destruction, an amazing collection of Judaica miraculously survived. In early 1942, as a result of instructions sent from the Jüdische Kultusgemeinde in Prague, the communities of Bohemia and Moravia packed their Torah scrolls, gold and silver rumenim, books and textiles, and sent them to the Central Jewish Museum in Prague. The volume was so great, the inventory of the museum, which had been in existence since 1906, expanded 14-fold. The museum, closed to the public, in fact stayed open till 1942, exclusively for visits by German high-ranking officers who were particularly interested in the books that were very valuable. Jewish curators and librarians were those responsible for cataloging this enormous collection, covering over 210,000 items. Most of these people were deported once their work was finished, and unfortunately, very, very few survived. For many years, it was believed the Germans intended to create a museum of an extinct race. However, in the Ark of Memory, published by the Jewish Museum of Prague in 2012, it is suggested, in fact, it was the Jews of Prague who were responsible for preserving this legacy. Following the defeat of Germany in 1945, some 50 communities were able to reopen. But in February 48, following a communist coup, all synagogues were closed, and the Jewish Museum became state-owned. And in 1958, approximately 1,800 scrolls were transferred to a damp warehouse that had once been the 18th century Müller synagogue. In 1963, the Artia, the Czech Soviet agency responsible for the sale of works of art, approached Eric Esterick, an American art dealer who lived in London but worked behind the Iron Curtain, and asked if he wished to buy Torah scrolls. Not interested personally, Eric approached Ralph Yablon, a generous philanthropist, who agreed to buy all the 1,564 scrolls that were on offer, on the condition they were brought to the Westminster Synagogue in London, of which he was a founding member, and the scrolls arrived there on the 7th of February, 1964. The scrolls have been stored in Prague in very poor conditions and uncared for over 20 years. Had they not been brought to London, there is no doubt that by the end of the communist rule in 1989, little of these scrolls, which were made of parchment that is biodegradable, would have survived. Some months after the arrival of the scrolls, David Brand, an Orthodox Sofa scribe, knocked on the synagogue door, inquiring if any Torah required repairs. You can imagine his incredulity when he was shown 1,564 scrolls, of which very few were kosher. The vast majority required major attention, with many being totally unusable except as memorials. He actually spent 27 years coming backwards and forwards from Israel to repair our scrolls. Since 1964, some 1,400 Torah scrolls have been distributed to over 1,300 communities and organizations in many countries around the world. Our scrolls are never sold, only allocated on permanent loan, to be returned to us if a community closes or merges. We're thankful to the Jewish Museum in Prague, whose director, Dr. Leo Pavlat, and staff continue to supply us with information and help whenever asked for. We ask that our scrollholder communities use their Czech scrolls in meaningful ways for services and by B'nai Mitzvah, if kosher. If not kosher, they can still be used on Kol Nidre, Yom HaShoah, Simchat Torah, and other occasions, and for memorials. We encourage our communities to have scroll gatherings, local or regional. In 2019, Temple Emmanuel in New York had 75 schools and over 800 people coming from 10 states participating, the largest we've ever had. This was possible largely thanks to our US volunteers helping to organize the event. As well as publishing a monthly email newsletter, we also post articles on our Facebook page. Last year, we started giving Zoom talks about the scrolls, and these are becoming increasingly popular. We have a museum in London currently closed, where we display 150 scrolls, together with over 400 binders and wimples that came with the scrolls, and they represent one of the largest collections of its type in the world. We are now digitizing these binders and linking them to the names mentioned on them, the scrolls they were formerly attached to, as well as the towns they came from. Our Czech Torah webpage project has a goal of linking over 1,000 scroll holder communities around the world. So far, we've made 446 website page links that become viewed on our website. So we still have a way to go. And if your community hasn't made a page yet, please do so. Thanks to the generosity of donors, we've recently completely restored a rare Haftarah scroll, which has both Nakudot and Trope. That's accents and cantillation marks. We've also had a scroll carbon dated to the 13th century. However, this one is unfortunately in very poor condition. We're now collecting unpublished Czech survivor memoirs that can be added to our website, ensuring that these stories will never be forgotten. Light Beyond the Shadow, the excellent book, whose authors Sheila and Julius will talk about shortly, is the second book that MST has published. In a few months, we should be publishing our third book, A Complete History of the Czech Scrolls. We have now established an e-shop dedicated exclusively to books with a Czech Jewish interest, and we hope that you'll take a look at it on our website. We have a few return scrolls available and continue to receive applications for them. In fact, thanks to Rabbi David, you may not know, I had an application for 2 from Israel today. During the last year, we allocated scrolls to the USA, Canada, and Australia. Our first request for a Torah from Czechia was from the Alamo community, to whom we allocated a scroll in 2017, with many people attending the Siyum and Hachnasat, including from the MST. Now, thanks to the generosity and help of the WUPJ, we've been able to restore a Torah completely to Glat Kosher for Rabbi Maxa's community at chajim, which we will take to Prague as soon as COVID conditions allow. In Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, we're told there's a season for everything under the sun, but not the contradictory emotions can overlap, for example, joy and sadness. And we have to figure out how to cope with both simultaneously. How apt it is this with reference to our scrolls. Sadness as a history, joy at the meaningful use and enthusiasm of our Czech Torah scroll holders. Whether you believe the Torah was written by several authors over a long period of time, or whether you believe in Torah min hashamayim, it was given by God to Moses on Mount Sinai, the Sefer Torah is the one thing that binds all Jews together. Regardless of their denomination, all Jews respect Torah. The Torah is also revered as the Old Testament of Christianity, and the 5 books of Musa are Tawat of Islam. At the MST, we hope the scrolls will continue to be used in ways to remind us of what we have in common, rather than what divides us, both as Jews and as human beings. Thank you very much.
What a great talk. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I'd like to remind everybody, if you have some questions, please can you put them on the chat, and I will pick them up. Now it's my pleasure to reintroduce you to Sheila and then to Julius.
Oh, okay. David, would you we can start the slides. They're hosted in Prague because I was concerned about the transmission from the US. So I'm going to say next when we're ready for the next slide. Okay. This is the cover of our book, but let's peek inside. Can we have the next slide, please? So today, we're going to talk about the why and the how of how this all happened, and then we're going to show you 4 of the 50 towns that are in the book, and along the way you'll hear our insights about the journey itself, and later you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions of either one of us. Initially, my focus was to photograph and document what was left Judaically in the scroll collection points. These photographs will be available on the Memorial Scrolls Trust website for anyone to access. After about a week into our project, we saw that there was so much more to this history. The legacy of the former Jewish Czech people was everywhere. And we decided that this was a very important story to be told.
Yes, you noticed probably on the title, which is kind of reflection of our final summary of the journey. And the subtitle is Torah Scrolls. And it's mostly aimed to bring the picture of the places where the Torah Scrolls were at home before the war. And the whole journey evolved quite dramatically from places of loss and disruption to a journey of hope. And the book is not encyclopedia. It's more like a window into our journey and our experience going place by place, town by town. And as I genealogy, as I told you before, I went quite often to those towns with my clients, but usually I go just to see one particular house or the synagogue. And now going with Sheila through those places, I get a much higher and larger picture. And I would say I just entered, I was grateful to be able to. I was grateful to enter the deep waters of the world of Torah Scrolls from Bohemia, Moravia, and Silesia.
The next slide, please. Yeah. Julius?
Yes, that's our kind of roadmap. And it's far from being showing you geography, because those are dots showing you that the Jewish community was spread throughout the country. And this is the list we were given to go through the town. So probably for those of you who are familiar with the geography of the Czech Republic, you cannot see much spaces in the former Sudetenland, although it's rather a political term, it's not a geographical term. But we went into the protectorate places. And although there are so many spots, it rather shows the collection points for Torah scrolls. So when the Jews and the community leaders were asked to bring the Judaica and the Torah scrolls to the collection points, those points delineate the places of humiliation, frustration, and also finally deportation if the Jewish people could not leave their places. So it's more geography, it's list of the pain.
The next slide, please.
As you can see, this is kind of window into our journey, and this is to show you the variety of bodies, individuals who are taking care nowadays about the sanctuaries and former synagogues. And I've done a lot of research before we took upon the journey. So I have hundreds of names and contacts. So whoever is interested, just let me know. I'll let you know whom to call, whom to talk to, and how to get in and get in contact with people who are still taking care of the Jewish legacy.
Next slide. Most tourists spend their time in Prague, and perhaps they go on a few day trips to Terezin or Kolín or some other towns. And what they're missing is the extraordinary beauty of the countryside. Mountains and lakes and castles and spectacularly restored synagogues. It was an inspirational and spiritual journey that that took place over these months. It was quite incredible.
And honestly, to see the beauty of the places and the countryside as well helped me somehow to go over the initial pain and feeling of losses and destruction. And gradually we went on this journey. There were coming kind of sparks of light, I would call it. So soon after we embarked on the journey, we visited places, gave us some kind of hope and a good feelings and kind of feelings of resilience of Czech people. And also it showed us the special relationship between the Czechs and the Jews, although it doesn't look like always. I just came across quite recently about the book, which is called Mysterious Bond Between the Jews and the Czechs. It's a summary of different kind of reviews. And it all goes in the same kind of tone. The Jews, although they suffered much more than the Czech people, they had a lot of in common in history. They were oppressed. Even a lot of Czech families had to go to the exile in the 16th century, being oppressed by the Habsburgs and the Catholics, new government. So we found quite a few resemblances, including the sense of humor. And I would say that's partly explanation why we found so many people who care and who feel that the Jewish heritage is a Czech national heritage, which I found somehow obscure, but that's how it is.
The next one, please. So let me just tell you a little bit about the book. It's 158 pages long with way over 200 photographs highlighting 50 towns. It's divided into 4 sections. There's a section about the Memorial Scrolls Trust story. Then there's a sectioning on remembering, one on rebuilding, and one on rekindling the light. And interspersed are wonderful essays written by exceptional people who've been touched by the Czech Torahs and are involved in Jewish life in the Czech Republic today. So today we're going to talk about 4 of the 50 towns that are discussed in the book. And the first, excuse me.
Yeah, I would say the structure of the book, which is elaborated very nicely, reflects the whole nature of the journey we took, because it goes chapter by chapter from Memorial Scrolls Trust up to rekindling the light. So, and also a lot of wonderful essays from different distinguished and esteemed historians, archivists, and other people. And just briefly, those 3 chapters are devoted into 3 thirds. 1/3 of the Czech synagogues were destroyed by the Germans, partly during Kristallnacht and also later. 1/3 was demolished during the communist time because the synagogues were mostly abandoned, and also they were still standing like a symbol of religion. And 1/3 roughly is still standing. So we went to many of those places, and the 3rd chapter is to rekindling of the Jewish life in the country.
Next, please. Kosovo. This was the most inspiring town we visited. Julius told us before we arrived that the Jewish ghetto still existed and that the synagogue had been restored. When we arrived, I left Julius and I wandered around photographing and saw the memorial and the houses around the square. Meanwhile, Julius knocked on the door of the house it was actually the former rabbi's house and was greeted by the man pictured in the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay.
So when I spoke to him on the phone, he just told me a few details, but I didn't know much what to expect. So we arrived at the spot, I knocked on the door, and that man showed up, and we chatted for a while. And he told me that he was wandering throughout the Czech countryside in the 1980s. And once he spotted, in the year 1978, he spotted the ruins or dilapidating building of probably former synagogue. And there were 2 bulldozers already standing next to the building, just ready to tear it down. So he ran into the local municipality and was told that it's going to be demolished very soon. And he decided to buy that place. So he bought this former synagogue and rabbi's house for 1 month's salary, 1978. And then he, started to repair the building from his own money. Once he fixed the window, then he fixed the roof, and gradually, long time to do it and a lot of work, he restored the whole places. Then finally in the 2000 something, he got some funding from the government and from some grants, but before he worked hard for 30 years to restore it.
The next one, please. So just take a look at this. He opened up the door of the synagogue. It was a very old door, probably the original door. And light was streaming from the right-hand side. And it took my breath away. It brought tears to my eyes. It was absolutely incredible. We all stood there just with our mouths hanging open because it was so unexpected.
And as you can see, that's a wonderful example for me. He's Husid, basically, because that's what one man can do, which is totally unbelievable. He studied archival plans. He went to the archives to see the old pictures, and he picked it up from the ruins and make it like you can see it now today. Amazing, lifelong mission.
The next slide, please. And here we are in Olomouc. Olomouc is a large city in the eastern part of the Czech Republic in Moravia. It was a very special visit because Jill Muller accompanied us. We had met her a few months earlier, and her mother's side of her family was from Olomouc, and I asked her to join us. She has written a wonderful essay in our book telling her family's story. She showed us where members of her family had lived, where she had Stolperstein installed in the sidewalk in front of their former home. It was so special for us, so special for us.
Yeah, probably, as you many know, the Stolperstein is a very personal way how to commemorate the victims of Shoah, putting the names and a few family details on a sidewalk. It's nowadays throughout the whole country and also other places in Europe. And this is one example because there were 1,125 people were killed, taken to Terezin first, and then taken to the death camps in the east.
The next one, please. So if you look closely, you can, what I've done with this photograph is I took the site and then I superimposed the synagogue where it would have stood before it was torn down by the Nazis in 1939. I tried to match the buildings in the background so that you could really get a sense of what the site would have looked like. It turned out that Jill's family lived just across the street from the synagogue. And unfortunately now it's just a parking lot.
Yeah, the synagogue was destroyed in 1939 by the Germans, so it's nothing left at all. There's an interesting movie about the destruction and the kind of animation. You can see it on YouTube. And it also shows the large extent of the synagogue because the community was large. And what only remained, and we saw quite a few little miracles along our journey. The windows from the synagogue were saved by the firemen and later installed in a synagogue in Lashtice, with the help of a local NGO in Lashtice. Some survivors are still living in Israel. We are supposed to go to Beit Terezin last year, but COVID changed everything, so we didn't go there. So hopefully we'll go there maybe this year, maybe next year. So join us for the trip to Beit Terezin.
The next one, please. We visited the Alamo Jewish Community Center. Jeffrey told you a little about it before. It is an active and growing community, and it meets in this community center daily. The 200-year-old Torah on the right is one of the Czech Torahs rescued by the Memorial Scrolls Trust. It had been loaned to the Peninsula Sinai congregation in Foster City, California for 47 years. They raised funds to restore the Torah, and with the help of the Memorial Scrolls Trust, they were able to, could be loaned back to Olomouc instead. And in October of 2017, it was returned to Olomouc. And, you know, it is revered and loved. And I can only say the reaction of the person that we met in this community center, he was just so happy to show it to us and so happy that that Torah was in their Aron HaKodesh.
And showing you those pictures from Alamo, you can understand us more fully that from the beginning of our journey, when we saw rather losses and destruction, those were the great moments of hope in our whole journey. The synagogue was destroyed in 1939, as I said before, but nowadays the prayer room is set up in a community house. And what else can we say? Am Israel Chai.
Next, please. The photograph on the left is the old town gate. This was a royal town, and Jews were not permitted to live inside the walls. However, they were allowed to sell goods in the town until sunset. And during the week, they camped outside the walls and returned in the morning to re-enter the city. Fortunately, life changed for the Jews in the mid-19th century when they were permitted to live in the royal town. Next,
and as you can see, this is the gate where the Jews can get in, and it's portrayed in the work of another tzaddik, I would say, work. His name is Ladislav Vilimek, and he's the historian and nowadays also writer, because he spends last, I would say, 40 years collecting and compile the history, but not all the Jews, but of every single Jewish person in Jihlava who went through the town since maybe 1860, where the Jews were given the full civic rights. So he wrote many articles, and he's studying history of the Jewish people in the town. And he also wrote interesting series, which is named also The Houses Are Dying Upright. And he took tremendous amount of time and work looking for the books and records and censuses and registers. And he went through Jihlava, town by town, place by place, documenting names who lived there since 1860. And it's enormous amount of work. And he was our guide in the town. And he spent most of his life doing it. And he is really blessed person doing what he's doing.
He also showed us the site where the synagogue existed. And you can see, if you look closely, there are a pile of bricks around the circumference of the circle, and those were original bricks of the foundation. And he also is very involved in the cemetery as well, and there is a wonderful museum inside the cemetery, in the mortuary house, in the former mortuary house. Then, and now we're on to our next town. Next one, please. Once again, we encountered another incredible person. She is dedicated to preserving the legacy of the Jews who lived in her town. Her father was Jewish, and she lives in the same house that her family has occupied for 300 years. And you can see the work that she has done. She arranged to have Jewish stars along the perimeter of the entire Jewish quarter, and was instrumental in having Stolperstein laid in throughout the town. She's really just an incredible woman. The next one, please.
This is the interior of the synagogue, which was, I would say, the municipality somehow motivated and induced by the effort of Yarai Linkova. They worked hard on restoration. They applied for the Norwegian grants, but they don't wait for the money from outside. They do, if they can do anything, they just do it. When I went there 2 years ago, I think with the descendant of the last cantor of Ivančice. So we went to the synagogue. The roof is still concrete. So now they say they open it to its former beauty and to its former extent. So municipality is working hard on restoration. They plan to make it public library. And you can see also this is the exhibit hall in the cemetery. You can see as we faced, and it's also in the book, we faced a lot of aspects of the Jewish history in those towns. And there's a little exhibit devoted to the Jewish soldiers who left Czechoslovakia, and they fought in the armies abroad, in Russian army, and also in the British army, and in Tobruk, and all those places, fighting the Nazis because they were devoted and they were part of the Czechoslovakia.
Next one, please.
One of the essays is also made in a book written by Anne Miriam, who moved to Pallay from Prague, having, I would say, heart full of Yiddishkeit, and tried to revive the Yiddishkeit in the town. She bought a small house next to the synagogue, and she's organizing workshops and Jewish festivals, and also organizing Stolpersteine laying. She found another format so she can be by herself, actually by her stonemason. So she's inviting twice a year the members of the family to lay Stolpersteine in Pallay.
The next one, please. Julius, you want to do the first?
Okay, yeah. As we experienced throughout our journey, we saw many different initiatives, not only taking care of the sanctuaries and the synagogues, but also commemorate the victims of Shoah. One of the biggest and most successful projects that we experienced in many, many towns was a project named Missing Neighbors. It was invented by a lady from Jewish Museum of Prague, and she wanted the program be personal and active. So the main kind of strategy was to ask the school children go back home and ask the grandparents if they recall their Jewish classmates and friends. And the results were often shocking because, as you know, if you knock on a door, and this is the door going to the black hole in terms of physics, you can find many unexpected things. So some of the children found out their own Jewish heritage, and also they found quite often that the grandmothers gave name of the classmates who disappeared in Shoah to their own children. So the students learned their own mothers are named after Shoah victims, and many other things showed up when we started right questions to be answered. Another project is the Yom HaShoah, which is organized nowadays, I would say, about 30 Czechia-Moravian towns throughout the country. So people gather in their places and they name they read the names of the Shoah victims of the former neighbors in the town. Another project is the 10 Stars. We saw many projects which were initiated by the individuals or municipalities or NGOs. But this is one large extent project run, organized by the Federation of Jewish Communities in Prague. They got funding from European Union funds and from Ministry of Culture and also from their own resources. And during the process, I would say 5 years or so, they were able to restore and bring back to the beauty 10 places, 10 synagogues throughout the country. And we visited most of them.
Another project, which was just the coincidence of coincidences that we found out about it. So we were in this town that had basically nothing left Judaically except a cemetery. And so we headed to the cemetery. And as we approached the gates of the cemetery, we saw this group of high school students and their teacher opening up the gates and walking into the cemetery. And so we asked them what they were doing, and the teacher answered that they were working on a project called Who Am I? Because she created this project, but because she wanted her students to understand their personal legacy and what made up their DNA, because she felt that the Jewish community in her town was so important that she wanted her students to understand the Jewish legacy. And all of us were blown away by that, absolutely blown away by that. And the students walked around the cemetery and they picked gravestones and names, and their job was to do research on these people so that they would learn about the Jews of the town. The other thing that the next Stolperstein we've told you we've shown you quite a few opportunities that Stolperstein were installed, but in Prague alone, there are over 400, and they're all over the country in many cities. It's quite amazing. The other project that's ongoing is a Crocus Project, and it commemorates the 1.5 million Jewish children who perished. It's sponsored by the Jewish Museum in Prague, and children, all these bulbs were planted right near the schools around the Czech Republic, and so they plant these bulbs in memory of the children and watch the crocuses grow every year. They tend to the flowers. The next one, please. As you can see, what began as a journey to document what was left Judaically in the collection points became so much more. The memory of Jewish presence is palpable. I've witnessed amazing resilience and hope among all Czechs, non-Jewish and also Jews alike. Non-Jews are engaged and learning about the Jewish legacy and the resurgence. And also now there is a resurgence of a new generation of Jews who are beginning to learn about their own Jewish identity. We encourage you to buy our book and share our journey, and all the proceeds will be donated to MST, and Eitz Chaim. Thank you so much. And now I turn it back to you, Jonathan.
Well, thank you very much. Wonderful presentation from both you and Julius. Thank you so much. Very, very inspiring. And if you spoke to us for many hours, you wouldn't do justice to the extraordinary work that you've done. So it's wonderful that you've shared some of it. And I really commend the book to everybody. While David prepares to speak next, I want to highlight a few people who I'm very pleased are online with us. We have over 100 people on this today, which is wonderful. But I'd like to reach out particularly and say hi to Carol Sterling, who's the chair of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, and she's joining us from Toronto and has been a fantastic supporter of ours here in Prague over a long period of time. And also hi to Cologne, where we have Sonia Guntner, our chair of the European Union for Progressive Judaism, who had played a very, very significant role in helping us to obtain the Torah. You're going to hear a story about that in a moment from David. And also a very, very big hello to Ellen and Jim Dreyfus from Chicago. Ellen, you have been a real inspiration to Rabbi Ellen, I should say. You've been a real inspiration to David and all of us here in Prague, and really have helped absolutely enormously. And we look forward to welcoming you both here in the not too distant future. Joel Osserin from Jerusalem, who's the former responsible for international development for the World Union for Progressive Judaism, the most fantastic support that we've had from him over many, many years. And last but no means least, Northwood in North London, Rabbi Andrew Goldstein, for his absolute undying support over many, many, many decades in supporting what has been happening here in the renewal of progressive Judaism. And thank you very much to all of you. Please have the questions rolling in. And now it's my pleasure to pass you over to Rabbi David.
Hello, everyone, one more time from Prague. Before I start with my presentation, I just would like to say how humbled I feel to be on this panel with all of you. And I particularly, I have to say that I am very, very grateful for everything you did and all of you, all of the people who spoke before me, for the preservation of the memory and heritage of Czech Jewry via your work, which seems to be incredible. And I also would like to say thank you to all of the people who are joining us at this point, and who, many of them were involved in the same project and the same idea for so many years. So many thanks. Before I show you some pictures, I would like to say that when I was listening to all the stories, which Jeffrey was telling us, and Sheila and Julius, I can't help but think that the Torah scrolls are not just connecting us all over the world, whenever we are, but they are also a little bit like people. And I say that especially thinking of the Torah scrolls, of the Czech Torah scrolls from the collection of the Memorial Scroll Trust, because similarly to people, they had to leave basically their own country of origin. In many cases, they were persecuted. They were brought to one place to be torn from their congregations, from their communities. they were humiliated, the scrolls. And after the war, after it ended, they had to leave basically to different country where they were revived again, brought to life. And from that place in London, they were brought to many other places all over the world. And they served there. And some of them, indeed, and again, very similar like people, some of them, they are finding their way back to their country of origin. And this is something I'm really excited about. I would like to tell you now the story because there are so many of them, so many stories. I would like to tell you one story in particular, and this is the story of one specific scroll which the Memorial Scroll Trust is going to relocate to Prague. And I would like to invite you to follow with me the story of the scroll from the very beginning. But also I would like to invite you to follow how the story of the scroll is connected to our lives. And I would like to, because it's something I experienced, I would like to give you the experience from my own life. So as you can see, this is the number of the scroll which we are going to be talking about. Why did I put this picture for the beginning of my presentation? For those of you who visited Prague, you would know that this is one of the walls of the Pinchas synagogue. Pinchas synagogue in Prague is one of the synagogues in the Jewish Old Town, so to speak, Josefov. And this is a synagogue which was chosen to be a memorial for all Jews of Czech origin who were murdered during the Shoah. And I chose this picture for one particular personal reason, because this is my childhood. This is how I perceived Judaism when I was a child. Something belonging to the past, something which was lost, something which was not going to be revived. Just a thing to explain, my father was a Shoah survivor himself. During the war, he escaped from the transport and he went into hiding, and thanks to the help of people who saved him at the risk of risking their own life, he was rescued and he survived. This was basically the memory of some kind of stigma, some kind of sadness which was given to me. However, later I was very much interested in knowing more, and thanks to various meetings, and I had so much luck in my life about them, I started to study Jewish studies at the Charles University in Prague, and I wanted to know more about Judaism, but not as the tradition of the past, but about something what is happening right now and what has the future. And after a lot of stories, I also became interested in not just learning more about this tradition, but being the one who is able to transmit it, who is able to teach other people. And this actually was the reason why I met Rabbi Joel Osteran, and Jonathan was talking about him, was mentioning him already probably. And the thing is that it was, just to show you how everything is connected, it was the home of the host of this discussion where I met him. So Jonathan's home when I met Rabbi Joel, and where I had a serious discussion with him what to do if I want to become a rabbi. And one of the things I did, that I attended the conference, biennial conference of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, which was also mentioned in Jerusalem, and I then enrolled as a rabbinic student at the Abraham Geiger College. But before that, before doing that, Rabbi Joel told me that if I want to become a rabbi, if I want to consider doing this career, I should actually be tested. I should try it on my own. And that's why he connected me with a wonderful person whose name is Melissa Frey, at the time the director of the URJ Kutz camp, which I didn't know anything about at that time. I just knew that it was a place somewhere in the middle of forest where I was supposed to do and to teach something what I knew about Jewish tradition. I knew quite a lot theoretically, but my practical knowledge was not so big. And that's why Rabbi Joel thought that it would be a good match. I would bring to the student my theoretical knowledge about Jewish tradition and give them some skills, teach them some skills, and I would learn from them again the practical matter. And when I came to Kutz, it was just very interesting to see how my way of thinking about Jewish tradition and their way were totally different. Which means that I always, I grew up with with understanding as a stigma, as I said. In the United States, when I came there, I experienced something I would call carefreeness in Jewish tradition. You know, that people were carefree, people were interested in life, in going to the future and these things, without basically that stigma, that burden, which I always had as a part of my identity. And indeed, it was a source of big inspiration for me. In these pictures, you can see my group, which I was teaching or learning from, whatever you prefer. That was actually went both directions. And I loved all my students there. It was just very, very inspiring. And of course, as a part of it, there were Torah services, so regular Shabbat and weekday services. And there was a Torah scroll which they had. You can see this Torah scroll in various pictures which were kindly sent to me. This is basically from different stages. Different groups are depicted in these pictures. And as a matter of fact, this was the first Torah scroll which I ever had, which I ever touched in my life. I never experienced it before. It was the first Torah scroll that I touched. It was in Kutz camp. But as I said, I didn't know anything about its history at that time. I didn't know about so much about the Torah, about the story of the Memorial Scroll Trust. But it was a very, very powerful moment which I experienced there. And I have to say that it was also thanks to the trust of Rabbi Joel and Melissa, who invited me and had enough trust in me that I will manage. So I experienced that as one summer I came back a little bit changed before my rabbinical school. I would say quite substantially changed, because it was just a different experience and gave me a lot of motivation for the future. During my rabbinical studies, I had one more life-changing moment, I would say, not just Kutz, but that was the second moment, or one of the other moments. And that was coming to the Westminster Synagogue as a rabbinic intern to be there to help, to assist Rabbi Thomas Salomon. It was very much inspiring internship for me. Spent some time with Rabbi Thomas and his wife Renee. But as a part of this internship, I was introduced to Jeffrey Ohrenstein, who showed me the most wonderful collection of the Torah scrolls I ever seen in my life, and told me their story. I would never forget that morning that I met him in the trust together with my wife Judita, and then we were walking with him, and I was listening to the story, and I was just not just moved, but also, you know, very happy about how it finally ended. So it was both a heartbreaking moment, to see all the scrolls representing so many congregations and communities which were destroyed, but also very positive feeling because these scrolls were being cared for, that they were basically allowed to serve their original purpose, and that was something I was very grateful for, and it was just very moving. And it was very, very surprising when, after again 3 years, I received a phone call, 2 phone calls actually, from very dear people. And this was Sonia Guntner, who Jonathan already mentioned, the chairperson of the European Union for Progressive Judaism, and also Andrew Keane, who was at that time the president of NIFTY, North American Youth Union, who was serving with me at that time with in the Quds camp. And the message was that there are being talks about one of the Torah scrolls whose institution was unfortunately going to be closed. This is the Quds camp, possibly being discussed with the Memorial Scroll Trust, that after it comes back to London, it might go back to Prague. And I was very excited about that because it immediately rang the bell, and I said, Quds camp. This was the first scroll I ever touched in my life. So after that, I got all the information, and I was told that basically this Torah scroll was there already since 1973. And Jeffrey kindly provided me with documents which were sent connected to basically allocating the scroll to Quds camp, to New York in the United States, between their representation of the URJ and also the representative of the Memorial Scroll Trust, Memorial Scroll Committee. And I was just very excited to see them, because it just says that this scroll has such an amazing history. And at this moment, I just would like to say that it accompanied generations and generations leaders and Jewish American Reform leaders and kids, and but basically very much the scroll represented very much for them, meant very much for them in the families. And I saw maybe many of you are already connected who were the ones who read from the scroll in the camp. And then these pictures depict the moments where it was announced that the scroll, after served so many years in the Quds camp, who unfortunately had to close, but it will be brought back to London, and after that reallocated after the necessary repairs to Prague, to our newly founded congregation. I say newly, but it was already 2 years ago when we founded Chajim. So the scroll will be there, and you can see here various people representing Jewish World Jewish organization, progressive organization. So Jonathan mentioned Carol Sterling, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, and also you can see Maya, who was at the time the president, or still is the president of NIFTY. And it was very powerful moment for me to witness, to be with. And these are just other moments. And what's interesting is that my son, who you can see here, my wife holding him, I was just thinking at this moment that he will at one point be able to read from the scroll. And I was thinking of myself, because it was not the Torah scroll which defined my identity in my childhood, the life connection with it. And the same is valid for so many of my generation. So I was just thinking that he will be, and the next generation are going to be those who will enjoy from this amazing connection. And now you can see other picture there in Chicago at the biennial conference of the Union for Reform Judaism in the United States. And I now take you from Chicago, from the United States. I would like to take you to Prague. And these pictures, you can see, you know, based on the masks, that they are not so old. So this is the opening of our synagogue in Prague, in the city center of Prague, which took place in September, just before Rosh Hashanah. This moment represents so much for us. I need to say, you know, for Czech Jews and for myself personally, for so many people. You know, our goal in Etz Chaim is basically to reintroduce Jewish tradition in Jewish families. What was forgotten needs to be brought back. We also work on involving young people or people of all generations in our community, and allow them to feel that connection with Jewish heritage and with Jewish identity. Many times people with Jewish roots, they come first time and they say, you know, I don't know what to do. Is it not shaming for me to be here? You know, together with it, what is connected is educating children and educating people in Jewish tradition. And, you know, this is something what we do, bringing Jews and their families together, connecting all generations, promoting egalitarianism and openness, and bringing Judaism to public. It's also one more important thing, remembering the past, but at the same time securing the future of the Czech Jewry, and also building a strong progressive Jewish community. And there is no wonder that we decided to call it Etz Chaim, the tree of life, the source of life energy for the future generations. And now, just wanted to show you a few pictures from what we do. This is, you know, various range of activities, of course, bar bat mitzvahs. Then we have, you know, of course, holiday, Shabbat celebrations, teaching, learning. And this picture is quite special for me, because this is the brit of my son. And this was the moment where I actually met Sheila and her husband Herb, and thanks to them I could also meet Julius. And this is somehow closing the circle, what I was talking about. And you know, I have to say that it's such a wonderful thing to have this book. I have just next to myself, and you know, looking at it, and I was so privileged to have my part there and read it, and you know, see all the places that I would wish us all that we can have in the future, of full of those nice moments, that we can look at the book, and we can also visit the places, that you can indeed visit the Czech Republic and go to them, to visit all communities, all synagogues which are mentioned in the book, and also that you can visit our community, where you are most welcome when you visit Prague. I would like to thank for your attention. If you have any questions, or if you want to know more about Etz Chaim, you can follow us on Facebook. You can write to me. You can ask me what we do if you want to know more or visit our services. And before I end and I return the word to Jonathan, I just would like to say one more time many thanks to all of you, and in particular to Jeffrey for being able to, you know, bring us to that moment that we have this wonderful anticipation of the Torah scroll coming when the pandemic is over to Prague, and Jeffrey bringing that and bringing us light for the future generations of our community. And let me congratulate to Sheila and Julius on their most amazing book. We all very much appreciate that. And this is such a wonderful moment for all of us to be able to be with you and to present this book. And I hope that the time won't be too distant, that you will come to Prague and you will show us and tell us about the book in person.
Well, thank you very much, David.
Jonathan,
as
could I
want to
interrupt 1 second? May I
sure,
interrupt 1
Jeffrey,
second?
please interrupt.
I just feel I have to say something to you, David, because I found it quite amazing. When Melissa contacted me about presenting a scroll, one of the 2 scrolls from the Quds camp to you, of course, I said straight away, this was a brilliant idea. However, when the scroll came to London, unfortunately, I found that, or the sofa that examined it, found that it had such wonderful use over 40 years that it really was, it was at retirement level, let's put it that way. And he said, it's really not worth restoring. So I got back to Sonia, I said, look, I think that and Andrew Keane, I said, I think that, look, this scroll is beyond repair. It's going to cost too much to do it. I will find another scroll for you that is kosher. And they said, no, we have to have, this is the scroll we have to have. And now I know the reason why. And it's such a mitzvah to be able to have that particular scroll for you. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction. I just wanted you to know that it wasn't an easy, and you were supported beyond your dreams for what the WPJ did to have this scroll repaired. I congratulate you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Look, we only have a few minutes left.
Jonathan, one short sentence, if I just want to say, I hope that we will have the opportunity in the future to thank all those who made it possible to repair the scroll. It is, such a gratitude we feel to all of them, and many of them are the supporters and participants of the Quds camp. And I wanted to tell all of you that the scroll, in spite of the fact that it left America, it will be there for you at chajim every time when you visit.
Yes. So in the final couple of minutes, because time is running short, very short, I want to say, first of all, you can hear from David all about the future. David represents the future. We are so lucky to have him. He is the exemplification of the renewal of Jewish life here. And he is a magnificent rabbi. I'm receiving, as he's speaking, all kinds of messages from people saying how wonderful he is. And I absolutely support that. And thank you, David, so much. The questions that people have asked have more or less actually been addressed. If you do have specific questions, you can feel free to email any of the individual speakers or through our Facebook page, of course. The book, Legacy of the Czech Scrolls and the Renewal of Jewish Life, for me, the 2 words in that are legacy and renewal. And we feel an immense sense of responsibility to honor the great legacy. Thank you so much to our speakers, Sheila, Jeffrey, and Julius. The work that you have all done in your different ways is really magnificent. This evening, this afternoon, this morning, depending on where you are, has been great, has been very illuminating. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating and for joining from Florida, California, New York, Michigan, and all kinds of places like Budapest and Cardiff and many, many places. It's really great. We're an international family. It means a huge amount to us here in the Czech Republic to have such international support, a huge amount. I cannot overstate that. I'd like to end by echoing what David said. We're a very warm, very hospitable, very open-armed community, and we really look forward to seeing you all here. there is nothing that expresses the antithesis of what we represent more than social distancing. And the sooner we no longer have to social distance and that we can come together, I look forward to hugging many of you as tightly as I can. And that will be your incentive for coming to Prague. Thank you so much, everybody. It's really been a pleasure to moderate this evening. And we really look forward to seeing everybody in person, in our new premises in the center of Prague in the very near future. And to echo the word of Julius, absolutely, as we can tell from this evening, Am Yisrael Chai. Good evening.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.